Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast. Sorry, we were just vibing there for a minute. I also noticed just noticed the green screen is messing with your letters, so that looks fun.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it looks cool though.
These are clearly blue.
I know,
what's going on, green screen?
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah.
Hell of a start like us for always, but we are the Pixelists. We're your hosts. I'm Will, that's Blake. Talking about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. And today, that's going to be some Critical Role, episode 74, which I am very excited to dive into. We got some real juicy kind of lore explored this ep, at least in the second half. But more on that in a quick tidbit. First and foremost, I just wanted to say thank all of you guys for helping us get to 10,000 subscribers.
Do the cheering sound effect.
Yeah, wait, you know what? Actually,
do you have one?
You won't be able to hear it, but hey, hopefully that's not like blaringly loud, but
all I hear is my own thoughts and
they make medicine for that these days, you know.
Oh. Cool.
Anyway,
maybe with 10K subs, I can afford it.
There we go. But yeah, y'all, thank you so much. We briefly kind of talked about this in our Loki season 2 episode 1 discussion, but we know y'all are our main audience, so I wanted to kind of reiterate that here. But if you are watching Loki, definitely check that out. It was fun because this channel began with Blake and I's first video being a Loki season 1 discussion. So it's been super fun for season 2 to just come out and us to hit that 10K mark at the same time.
I guess also we're just over 2 years of the podcast. I think that was summer of 2021.
I guess that's right, because I guess there's about 2 years between the Loki seasons, right?
Yeah, and that was also I think when EXU aired, which I think was our first D&D thing.
Yeah,
I think there was EXU and then Calamity, I think. But
campaign 3 and then Calamity, because Calamity was like a mid campaign 3 situation.
That's right. So Calamity was a year later, actually. It was when we had been doing it for a year.
Right.
And yeah,
that's a good segue that I completely forgot about. Our Calamity rewatch, which we have been hosting. We have watched the first 3, so we only have the last one left. But what an episode that one is. So if you have never seen Calamity, maybe don't jump in just for the last one, unless you're going to watch all 3 running up to it. But this Sunday, we will be watching the finale of Calamity, hear about, like Blake just mentioned, a year after it originally aired. But like serendipitously, it has never been more relevant in campaign 3. So like, how lucky did we get with like this timing?
Yeah, very coincidental for sure.
More on that when we get into the discussion here. But yeah, this Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, we will be booting up episode 4. So come join our Discord and join us for that watch party. And of course, tomorrow, Thursday, we'll be having a watch party for Critical Role C375.
Yeah, and Will and I were talking about, there was some discussion on the Critical Role subreddit, people asking, hey, and here's the deal. I think Will and I agree, Reddit can be pretty toxic. And so people were even like commenting and talking about, it's hard to talk about even Critical Role nowadays without people being kind of toxic about it. And people were asking like, hey, where can I go to have, discussions with fellow critters? We'd love to invite you to the Discord, whether you are a casual fan or someone like us who watches every week's episode. Literally everyone's welcome to the Discord. Again, whether you're casual or more seasoned. And we do watch parties every Thursday night. So you're welcome to join us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, like, I might need to like look into the permissions, but I would assume anyone could invite people to our Discord, but maybe not. But
yeah, I don't know.
If you can, feel free to invite your other critter friends. Those of you out there, everyone is more than welcome, just like Blake said.
We also don't have the details to share yet, but actually now I don't know if I should say this because you were mentioning it, making it more secretive. So now I'm wondering, like, are we allowed to announce it, or are you wanting to wait, or
I think, hold off? I think I know what you're talking about, so let's hold off for now.
Okay, all right.
We'll see.
TBD, guys. Yeah, TBD. Yeah. Stay tuned is all I'll say.
And,
this is not a Witcher season 2 kind of thing. This is actually stay tuned kind of thing.
I still haven't watched season 3. I'm planning to. I'm definitely going to. not that anyone cares, but last year for season 2, we kind of made it this thing called Witchmas because it came out around like Christmas last year. So we watched
Who's we? I have never heard of this.
me and my girlfriend. We
Oh,
watched
okay.
one like bingeable shows. It's hard not to just like watch 4 on Netflix, but
Right.
we disciplined ourselves and watched one a day. So I was like, you know what? Since like the show is in the gutter and I'm never watching it after this season anyway, I'm just gonna wait and we're gonna have one last Witchmas this year as well. Anyway, all that to say is that season 2 reminded me of that. So
I
good
can dig
share.
it.
Good share.
Yeah.
But more relevant, speaking of the Discord, speaking of the watch parties, as some of you may or may not have seen, um, we have been watching, or I have been watching, and a lot of people have been joining me because these are less official watch parties, but watching through Fantasy High season 1, Dimension 20's first show, which is getting a threequel early next year. So that was kind of the impetus to finally watch it. So if you've never seen it before, it's probably going to be slightly more difficult unless you just don't care about like jumping in where I'm at. But for those of you that have seen it before, which I think is a majority of people that are joining me for watching these, just join the Discord. There's a special role you can select for the Fantasy High, and then you'll get a little ping every time that happens. But I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this yet, Blake, but you definitely got to watch it too, man. Whenever you get the time,
Pretty
because
good.
it's been so fun so far. Yeah,
I think your watch parties have been like middle of the day, like some or like early
only during the
afternoon or
weekends. Only during the weekends.
oh, okay. That man had a family, okay? Talking about myself. So
But yeah, so been super fun. So yeah, lots of not just Critical Role, though it is our main course. But
well,
lots of reasons to join the Discord.
not to get I don't make this intro any more long-winded than it is, which is also pretty on brand for us. Now that you've seen some Fantasy High, that sweet emotional heartstrings Brennan, have you gotten a little bit more of that in Fantasy High?
What do you mean by that specifically? Just like,
You know, Brennan creates like those moments where you're just like,
oh yeah, I mean
Brennan.
he's the king of that, the poignant philosophical turn of
Yeah.
phrase. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely that. It's
Like,
I'm not the
yeah.
first one to explain it this way, so I'm not taking credit. I'm pretty sure this is like the punchline for a lot of people describing it, but it is very like John Hughes movie meets D&D. It's very like Breakfast Club
Okay, yeah.
meets Harry Potter school. Um
Yeah. Okay.
but I had always been told that like D20 was a lot more comedic. Which I would say it is, but that's not to take away from the drama, and it does both. So
Yeah, okay.
I've
Okay, cool.
I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's time we talked about this amazing episode. And if you guys are just checking out the podcast for the first time, we do a recap at the start of every episode where we try to boil down the 4 or 5 hour episode into a 15-minute recap chunk. And then we post that separately on YouTube. So if you're watching just the recap, hello. We have a link to our full discussion in the description if you want to hear our thoughts and theories. And more importantly, we want to know what your thoughts and theories are, especially about this crazy episode. But having said that, Will, my friend, do you want to take the first half?
I thought you were the first half.
Don't do this to me.
I'm just kidding. No, we are on it this week, y'all. We have our
Yeah.
correct halves. But
It was
yes,
Jeremy's fault last time.
So for campaign 3, episode 74, Roots Between Worlds, we pick up with Bell's Hells traveling through the fog of Kalutha, this island that they know Evon'travir to be on. They can see these like big mountains in the distance, and they determine that they're basically a couple of days travel away. So the start of this episode is basically just kind of some travel montage. They are debating their best ways to get there, like Imogen can cast fly, Fern can, wild shape, but for now they decide to just hike on foot. And as they're going, they're kind of inspecting their surroundings, and they see a couple, or they see more than a couple, but they see wildlife in this area. Matt describes like these big, like, at least how I envisioned it was like these big, like hogs with like these big, like almost shield like faces. Really cool. And As they're going along, Laudna inspects the Raito charm once more with her new Eyes of the Runekeeper ability, so she can now under read it, and they figure out that it's engraved with basically somewhat of like a mantra, a religious like philosophy, talking about the owner's loved ones and their faith. And we come to find out that their name was Ifadola. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. In any case, the first leg of this journey is pretty uneventful. There are no encounters. The party then makes their way to a river, which is about 15 feet wide, and they have to cross this river. So they debate what to do, but ultimately, Orem takes one of their immovable rods, jumps over the river, plants it attached to a rope, by the way. And then the other side, Ashton attaches to the immovable rod in their hammer.
Yeah.
So the plan is Ashton is going to wait and be the last one to cross, and everyone else can use this rope to help them get across. So everyone does just that. They get across in their different ways. Like I think Misty Step is used by somebody, and everyone pretty much has an easy enough time getting over until Laudna, who actually falls in to the river and like starts getting pulled away. So Ashton jumps in after her, is able to successfully get a hold of her, and Orem uses Seedling to like whip out a vine to like for them to grab onto. But as this is happening, this big form starts coming out of the river behind them, kind of like stalking them. And it's essentially this big, like hippo type creature. And there's actually a few smaller hippos behind it. So they get yanked out quick enough before anything can happen. But F.C.G uses Speak with Animals to tell the hippo creatures, like, hey, sorry for disturbing you. We were just trying to get across the river. And the hippo creature just starts screaming, like, F off, like, don't come any closer. And the little ones behind it, which are its children, are like, yeah, you tell them, mom. It's a great little scene. So the party continues hiking until nightfall, and they decide to make camp. They make a little like A-frame tent basically within a tree. So we have our typical round of night watches, and it's all going pretty standard. But then Matt starts rolling behind the table, and he tells Laudna, "You take 9 necrotic damage." We don't know why this happened. And then Orem takes 6 necrotic damage. And Chet and Ashton are the ones on watch right now, and they don't see anything. So they're not even aware of this damage that's being taken in character, at least. So their watch ends, and they're going to return and wake up the next people. But it's now when they see these kind of like shadows moving. And Chetney lights up his chisel and sees like a dozen small shapes gathered around Laudna and Orem. So Ashton wakes everyone up. Imogen tries to like telepathically connect with whatever these entities are, and kind of gets this sense from them that they are like feeding on the warmth of Orem and Laudna's like bodies. So they find out that they aren't like attracted just to warmth like from a fire per se, like it's specifically from bodies. Laudna casts Chill Touch on one, and it just like explodes essentially. So they realize that these things are undead. So F.C.G does turn undead. Ashton holds Laudna down because she's going to be affected by it by always. And 11 more of these things just get exploded. The rest then recoil, and Chet is looking around and kind of can see these shadows everywhere around them. So they decide to build a big fire to kind of keep, have more light, keep the shadows more scarce. And the rest of the night, they're just really on guard. The watch is ultimately complete with no more events, and we make it to day 2. Day 2, again, we're hiking, traveling's going pretty smoothly until they come to a spot where Orem notices there's clearly a trap on the ground. Imogen throws a rock at it, and there is indeed like a pit trap full of like sharp sticks at the bottom. So they're wary of that, but they continue on, and they start to spot even more traps, but they are able to avoid all of them. And finally, as they travel, they're like, we don't know exactly where this tree is. And F.C.G's like, well, I have a spell called Find a Path, but we don't really have anything to like use because we've never been to this tree before. But they have the idea of, well, maybe we could use Ashton as kind of like a way to facilitate the spell, because he has like something to do with the tree. And they're like, okay. And it doesn't work at all. So he wastes a 6th level spell. But they continue on, and then they start to hear snapping twigs around them, and they can see several figures kind of moving in the jungle around them, and a voice shout out in a foreign language. And these people are like painted and camouflaged, blending like really well into the jungle. So F.C.G casts tongues so he can communicate with these people, and they're yelling, "Put down your weapons." So Bell's Hells do just that. And the central figure, which is a female, lowers her bow and she asks, "Who are you and how did you get here?" And that's where we go to break on the first half.
Yeah, so coming back from the break, she's actually speaking in common, and so the group is actually able to already interact with her. It's very much standoff isn't the right word, but they are very much wary of the party, Bell's Hells, and kind of like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Um, Imogen immediately says the name Ifadola, or Ifadola, I think.
Yeah.
The name of the hunter who had owned the Raito charm. And there is a look of confusion from this figure of like, kind of like, you're with them. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, what? Orem immediately jumps in and basically is like, hey, don't shoot. I'm getting something out of my bag, and basically hands the Raito charm over. Which disarms the situation a bit for the moment. The woman is somewhat grateful and basically says Timu isn't around anymore, but their family will be glad to get this back. And the party basically says, like, yeah, we took this from a big monster that we killed. And oh, by the way, we also destroyed your traps along the way. They come to find out that these are the, I think, Aisho was how it was pronounced.
Yeah, Aisho, I think.
Aisho. This is a this is a sect of the Ascended Host, which the Ascended Host it's the faction that protects Kalutha. Like, it's trying to not mix up with the alcoholic drink, Kalula. The island of Kalutha. Also, the faction that is in opposition of the ghost pirates from just an episode prior. But this is a faction, a subsect of the Aisho who protect the island. Immediately, they're like, what are you doing here? Are you grave robbers? Like, are you here to loot the island? And Ashton speaks up and basically says, no, I'm a Hishari. I'm here. I'm of primordial blood. We're looking for Evon'travir. The woman does not recognize the name Hishari at all. And Ashton is asked to do a persuasion check. And with advantage, rolls a 9. So the Aisho basically said, hey, we're not going to help you, but we also will leave you to it. And essentially go their separate ways. Not before Fern really tries to call them back and have a conversation, but they're gone. They're out of here. So the party's kind of like, okay, well, where do we go next? Imogen casts Fly on herself. She swoops up into the sky and looks over this massive, dense rainforest. And actually even goes back down and picks up Orem, who, always rolls a 30 plus for perception, to try to get some kind of insight onto where to go. They notice this area where two mountains on the island seem to sort of like sink in. And as they travel through the rainforest, the land begins to descend before they finally reach this massive maw of a sinkhole. Just this large, open, endless pit in front of them with like water and just the landscape sort of rolling off into this pit. We get a great callback from early episodes of a similar pit that Orem lost F.C.G's coin in. And they're kind of like, well, is this whole Evon'travir? Like, what should we do? There's a number of checks that happen across the party. Laudna does realize that there's something alien, but also very familiar about this hole. They know that Evon'travir, as the Tree of Atrophy, is described as being between worlds. And so there's something about like the afterlife or death or being undead that is familiar to her, is what's implied. And F.C.G eventually flips his coin and asks the Changebringer, like, hey, if we jump in this hole, are we going to die? And gets a pretty clear answer from Matt that, no, you won't die. So the party's like, sure, let's jump in the hole. And so they all decide to jump into this massive crater, this pit. They do have a couple of ways to sort of mitigate things going badly. They have Featherfall. I think they had Fly. Maybe there was something else too. But
Shoebill.
That's right. For its Shoebill form, they descend into this pit, and it eventually they find themselves falling through these dark jet black leaves of sprawling branches, and they can see the sky up above them, but they eventually descend into it's like a web of branches, and they find themselves at the base essentially of this massive Deku tree, I guess is kind of how I envisioned it. Um, they're kind of like, I think this has to be Evon'travir. They also note there's skulls everywhere, and not just skulls from seemingly the ascended host or locals here, but it seems like there's artifacts from years, hundreds of years prior, and notably nothing has dust on it. It all seems pretty like pristinely preserved. Um, Ashton goes up to the tree, puts his hand on it, and he's like, "Hey, man, I'm primordial. What's up? Tell me what's going on." And these big eyeballs open up on the tree, and we get a conversation with Evon'travir. And Evon'travir is presented as sort of like this sage. Interestingly enough, seems to know not only what's happened in the past, but also knows what will happen in the future, and basically tells Ashton an incredible lore reveal that F.G did in fact come to him previously, and F.G was directed to go retrieve a relic of the primordials, a shard of Kamort, the Empress of Earth, which is a great calamity mention, by the way. He retrieved it, and then through the ritual that ultimately led to his doom, Ashton was created in the form that he is now, or was transformed, rather. And basically says F.G doom was meant to happen to bring Ashton to this point. There's a really awesome dialogue about Ashton basically saying he's a nobody, he doesn't believe in fate, and Evon'travir's like, you're gonna have to get over that, man, because there are no nobodies who come to me, and fate does exist, and there is a fate for you. And basically gives them this amazing next quest and says, you need to go acquire the other shard of the primordials, the shard of Raushan, and explains, I think it was called like the Cinder Maw or the Cinder something, like a volcanic area that he would send them to go retrieve this, but warns that having two fragments in the same body could sunder his form entirely. While they're here, they're also like, "Hey, you seem like a really smart guy. You seem to know the past and the future. Tell us what the heck's going on with Predathos. Like, is this something like what should we be doing here?"
Yeah.
Which, if you've been watching long term, there's always been this dialogue on like, is Predathos the good guy or the bad guy? Should we stop them or not? And Evon'travir basically explains that, gives a vision of like an endless red, this endless red that seems to chase away the gods. But then more specifically says that lewdness likely should be stopped. And then also clues the party in to the fact that they are being scryed on, that they are being watched by some external force. There's also a funny scene of Ashton basically being like, "Hey, you need to chill out," and like shoves his pipe into Evon'travir's mouth and like forces him, I think Orm like casts a gust and like forces him to smoke the pipe.
Yeah.
And we get a really cool detail from Matt of like, as the smoke comes out, we see figures, people running who are ultimately caught and dissipate. And we find out that Evon'travir was formerly a Galdrishari who was part of the formation of the Pact of Crown and Throne, which is a calamity mention, and tasked himself with helping people escape the calamity. And now where he resides, he also remains with those that he could not save. All that to say, he opens up essentially a portal and sends the party to this place to retrieve the shard of Raushan, and that is where our episode ends. Episode 74, A Route Between Worlds. So don't forget, if you're watching the recap, we do have a link for the full episode discussion, and let us know what you guys think of this episode as well. So yeah.
Well done, man.
Yeah, you too. Very meaty episode.
Very meaty. The second half, obviously, especially. Lot of heavy lore dropped. And
I know I was gonna say, I know in the Discord, a lot of us were freaking out. as soon as the dialogue started happening about
Yeah.
Roshan and Kamort, because we've been doing the Calamity rewatch,
Yeah.
but it was just like, yes, put this nostalgia directly into my veins.
100%.
But what were you
Um,
saying though?
I was just waxing poetic still. Just there was a lot of heavy lore and a lot of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like to be analyzed. Like it wasn't just like it was kind of I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but it wasn't explicitly spelled out necessarily. There's interpretation to be had on kind of the exact phrasing of things that Matt put out there. So I'm excited to get into it today.
Right, and as you were talking, I was actually looking for that share I did of the questions and answers that
Mm,
Evon'travir.
yeah.
Man, if I
You
can
put it
find it.
I can't look. I can't also
I
look because
know.
if
I realize I
I don't mess
can't.
up our webcams.
I know, and I just actually just tried to move it, and then I was like, "Oh shoot, I can't."
um,
Let's see here.
you can maybe look at it on your phone.
Yeah, okay, we'll do
But
that
yeah. So for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, Blake, where did you get that from? Reddit or
from
just
Reddit.
so?
Yeah.
Blake shared a Reddit post shortly after the episode that was like a detailed recap of like exactly the questions and the responses from Evon'travir for anybody that wanted to take a deeper look at it. Um, okay, let's I think we should maybe knock out if there is anything like anything in the first half, anything pre Evon'travir, just not get that out of the way and then move right into that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just taking a quick look
I
at the
mean,
old
first half
notes.
was just fun. It's just fun D&D, like the hippos and
Yeah, those those hippos were great. Um, we
so I'm just
got
scrolling through my phone here.
you're fine. Um, the really only interesting thing I guess would be to
I
kind
got it.
of just looking at the Shattered Teeth as a whole, which isn't just this episode, but you know the previous one with the smelly one and the Mies, and
Mhm.
now we're getting these hippos and those like big faced boars as I called them, but then these like undead shadow entities that were like draining their life in the night.
Mhm.
Very interesting. I mean, I'm assuming those specifically, since we know they're undead and like maybe that had something to do with Evon'travir. Not like that Evon'travir sent them, but since Evon'travir is like treading the line between life and death,
Mhm.
like maybe the immediate surrounding area kind of has some kind of weird undead or you know
Yeah.
straddling the line type creatures. Just thought it was cool. This whole area has been really fun and cool to me in terms of like the world building.
Yeah.
And it's just a really
It's
cool place in Exandria. You know, we haven't really seen anything like this.
it's gonna be sad when we move on from it, which they're still there in the Shattered Teeth currently for this next episode.
Right.
Um, but I'm just such a junkie for Calamity that I'm just like, even from the first time they said they were going here, I was like, whoa, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, which I don't know if that was something. I'm sure like it wasn't as punchy, but I know in campaign 2 when they went to Aor, they go to Aor, right?
Right.
Was it a similar like let's spend some time here, or
Um
having I didn't see it obviously,
right.
so
Right.
like you didn't have the Calamity,
Right. Calamity didn't
um,
exist yet.
yeah,
Um well, the calamity happened obviously, but the Brennan Lee Mulligan led four shot did not
yeah,
exist yet. No, it was super cool, and they do spend a good chunk of time there. I don't want to get into like spoiler territory. But yeah, that is any time that you get to like interact with the deep lore is cool. And whether that
mhm,
in this case, in both of these cases, we're talking like Calamity or pre-Calamity, Age of Arcanum stuff, but not even limited to that. Just in general, whenever you get to like you know the deep lore where you can see where Matt like because I mean I guess I can't speak for Matt but like when I'm world building that's the stuff that like I love the most but it's also kind of the stuff that like may never see the light of day, you know what I'm saying, like because you're not just going to tell your random like level 2 paladin that just woke up in the tavern who's like looking to go do an escort mission like about the gods and how the world was formed, you know. So anyway, I'm losing myself here, but Love it. Yeah. So Aor was similar in that way. Just always cool to see that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
and it makes me think a little bit about Malesmere, in the sense of Matt has such a great knack for world building, in the sense of you get the sense that like things were happening there before the party got there, and that things will continue to be happening when they
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
Which I think sometimes in D&D, when you DM, it can be hard to create situations or settings that aren't very flat. Like a
Right.
party engage, it's 2D, I guess. I can't think
Yeah.
how to
Yeah.
describe it, but you engage with it and then you move on and it kind of ceases to exist, I
Yeah.
guess.
Like in a
Um,
video game, it only renders like what's right in front of you, and then everything else is deleted.
yeah. But yeah, from that, it's really cool because it's like you just get the sense that this is, rather than creating something for the players, like this is something created that the players are now discovering.
Right. Yeah.
And then we by effect of that are also discovering it with them.
Yeah.
So very cool.
Agreed. 100% agreed. I was actually wondering, this is tangentially related, but I had this thought from Matt, and I was just like, I wonder how he keeps all of this organized. Like, because he has so much lore that we've never seen. That probably a lot of it will never be seen. And so I'm wondering, like, I just wonder what his like organizational setup is to like remind himself like what he's told certain
Mm.
people when. Because there's just, especially after 7 years, I can only imagine, like, 'cause
Yeah.
I played for like 20 sessions, and I was like, what did I tell this character that piece of lore or this one? Like, I
Yeah.
needed a better system to
Yeah.
keep track of it.
Well, he said in the Wired interview that he uses Google Docs to organize everything. But on that note, I mean, he never seems to miss a beat when someone asks, which, let's be real, the CR team are really bad at remembering like key things. Like whenever Ralph, Sean, and Komort were mentioned, and Sam was like, "Okay, who is that?" and like was writing it down. I was like, "Bro, you were in the Calamity Foreshot, man.
Yeah.
Like you were there, you know." But all that to say, he does such a great job of being, even when someone misremembers something, where he's like, "Oh, actually, that was this character."
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, when I play with my characters, like I was playing the other day or last night, and someone was like, "What was that person's name?" and I was like,
Uh,
but then another player like had their note, and they're like, "Oh, it's Rodrigo." I don't know.
mm,
Says a name, and I'm like, "Yes, that
so
is who it is." So
inspiration for you.
yeah. But anyway,
But yeah. So yeah, Shattered Teeth have been awesome so far. Um, I I was curious. I mean, I don't think it was ever going to get there, but part of me wonders what happens if those things completely kill you, because it happened while they were sleeping.
mm,
They didn't, and maybe if the damage had persisted, there would have been some sort of like roll d20 to see if you wake up and see what's happening. But like, at least that hadn't happened yet. So like, I wonder if like there's no one around, could those just kill you and you don't even like get a chance to defend yourself, type of thing? And what happens if so? Like, do you become one? Those are all the types of thoughts that I have. But really cool. But I'm looking at my notes here. I don't think I really have anything else to talk about pre Evon'travir.
yeah, okay, let's jump into it.
All right.
And I did find the thing I was talking about.
Okay. Oh, nice. Okay, good. Um, you want to start us off? I don't really, as always, I just kind of have random thoughts that
Yeah.
I want to explore, but I don't know if I have a good
So
ordering to it.
I just like how we got a little bit of like uh, a ribbon tie on like the story of F. Terran, in the sense of there were some looming questions.
Yeah.
Notably, what was he doing with the ritual that destroyed the Hishari? What was the artifact that's been mentioned a few times that people have it's kind of gone over people's head? What was the
Yep.
artifact that was mentioned? And I think we even had some disagreement in the Discord a little bit about this, but for me, the implication isn't even so much necessarily true that the shard in Ashton's head is the shard of Comort, though I think that's a possibility. But regardless, he has the shard within him. Like he was
Right.
maybe, I think of like, the biblical Isaac or Abraham. I don't know which way it is, but
One of them become an Earth Elemental.
Yeah, right. In the Bible, yeah. Like the sacrificing of the son, the Old Testament story.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah.
I was thinking like I got that kind of vibe of like the reason Ashton survived or was transformed was that maybe Ashton was like the central sacrificial part of this ritual. And that is what, combined the fragment of Comort with him. But it was cool that we got that answer. And also this really cool fate styled discussion about F-Terran and what F-Terran was meant to do and the path that F-Terran was meant to take, and some cool implications around like destiny and like what choices do we have, and
Yeah.
it's all very interesting. But that was a really cool, just a cool revelation about Ashton.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's park there for a second because there's a lot I want to talk about just in that. So, one, confirmation that that was indeed his dad, which we didn't have hard confirmation on that until that moment, I don't think. Um, but two, I'm speaking of the Destiny stuff. I was very interested in this because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there some implicate or some phrase that like implied F. Terran had some sort of like dreams or visions or foresight of his own greatness?
Yeah, I think there had been something discussed about that, and maybe in like line of him being like the charismatic leader that he was. And then we specifically got that from Evon'travir in this session, this episode, where it was like he had visions of greatness, but was unaware of how he would be leaving his mark,
Yeah.
the mark
So
being Ashton.
I'm curious about that. Like, within the realm of D&D, I don't necessarily know what it would be, but I'm wondering if like what was giving him these visions, especially knowing that it was to his own doom ultimately. Like he was just being used as a pawn
Mm,
essentially to create Ashton. Um
mhm.
and I loved the like, well, before I move on to that, the ritual. So we know that he had, I don't know if delusions of grandeur is a fair way to put it or not, but like he had this big idea of his own destiny and went to Evon'travir, got the shard of Comort, and then because of how he's being characterized and the fact that Evon'travir said he didn't know like that his own doom was part of this. For my money, he was trying to like imbue himself with that thing, not Ashton.
Right.
Are you on the
Hmm.
same page with that?
Yeah.
So then, therefore, it combining with Ashton was just a freak coincidence.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Yeah. I don't think it was.
predestined, as it were, but
Yeah.
like he wasn't like combined with my son, like so. Um, that's really interesting to me, and Destiny's thrown out a lot, and but Ashton kind of rejects it. And this is the type of, well, okay, there's like so many different little branches I want to go down, but I don't want to leave F-Tarian yet. So for my money, something gave him these visions, presumably, and is using him. He gets the thing, he takes it back, he dies, presumably. Ashton becomes this vessel for Kamort, which that's what transformed him into an Earth Genasi. One of the big questions we've been wondering about the whole campaign. Um, and referring to the shard, like you mentioned in the Discord, so we know for certain that Ashton has Luxon in his head. Luxon, mode of
Lux and
possibility, whatever you want to call it.
Lux and juice.
Dunamancy, yeah, Dunamantic juice. So I think that's like the 8 ball, the magic 8 ball in his head. But in the art, I think there's also like it's like a stalagmite, or that's not the right word,
Yeah.
but there's like a
Yeah.
geode or something in his head. So like
Yeah.
maybe that
Right.
is what.
That's what I
um
was thinking, but some people in the Discord were like, I don't know about that. And which I'm okay either way if it is or isn't. But
yeah, I mean,
let me see
in
here.
any case, it's just aesthetic. Like he is the vessel and he is the shard. So whether that is like a physical manifestation of it or not is kind of beside the point at this point,
Mhm.
but that would be cool. Um,
Yeah, he does have some kind of like you said, geode right here in his head.
which okay, I know I'm just admitting defeat on jumping all over the place because there's too many things I want to say, and I know I'm not going to remember to come back to it if I don't jump. But so that happened when he was young, and then the accident with Milo and the Dunamancy happened when he was older. What's interesting
Right.
to think about is considering this like destiny and uh,
Yeah.
predeterminism stuff.
Yeah.
Um, if he was on a path, then the fact that he then got interwoven with Dunamantic magic is very interesting because that is the magic of possibility.
Hmm.
So like if you imagine he was on a hard cut road to like whatever destiny this was, that accident could end up being the best thing that ever happened to him because now like he can do whatever. He has,
Mm.
infinite possibilities to choose from.
Yeah, that makes
Um
sense.
which I thought was cool. And I also just thought it was so I think at the beginning of this episode mentioned Reddit and the Discord and all that stuff. So I don't often go on the Critical Role Reddit, mostly because a lot of the times it is negative, and we won't get into it. But the top comment was about um, Ashton at first going up to the tree, being like, "I am Ashton, Titan of Blood. Like I've come to get what's mine," and
Right.
then 5 minutes later was like, "I don't believe in destiny. Like I put all that aside," and like the comment was complaining about like how he just completely flip flopped and like what's up with that characterization. And this is why I just don't like Reddit because I'm like, what? Like I loved that. Like I thought that was like awesome characterization because that's been his like whole arc is like putting on this front. And to me,
Yeah.
it's like I'm at the tree. Like he was trying to be what he thought he needed to be in that moment, and then quickly the kind of veil comes off when like it gets real, if I can put it that way. So I thought it was awesome by RP by Taliesin, but it really surprised me to see that was the top comment and it was like negative about
Yeah, and I was just looking for it and I couldn't find it, but anyway, yeah, I mean, I think one of the central themes about Ashton is accepting who he is and also being willing to be the hero.
yeah.
We've had some really awesome developments for his character, notably when he had the outfit change and the person was asking, like, what style are you looking for? And he said, I'm looking for something heroic. This person who was relatively apathetic and maybe not indifferent, but kind of minded, very neutral, who has transitioned into a let's save the world kind of person. And so, yeah, it doesn't confuse me at all. It's this person who's trying to be this glimpse of who he realizes he's capable of being and then falling back into the old habits of I'm a nobody, I'm nothing. I mean, we're talking probably years of self-deprecating talk that he's used to. So, and I just left Evon'travir kind of snubbed that. It was like, I love there are no nobodies who come to me.
Yeah.
And basically like, hey, fate exists whether you like it or not. Um,
And I love the
so,
the layer of that being that his group was the nobodies, you know?
mhm,
I thought that was cool.
right, right.
Um
That's like, oh no, I was just saying that your group hadn't come. So,
but but yeah, I totally agree with that characterization, and I think that's been the cool arc to watch with Ashton recently. And especially I love the parallel of I think the first statement to Evon'travir was like intention, like full on kind of like old Ashton, like punk, like a front, like you're like and less of like I don't think that line was him like trying to embrace the heroic role and then like immediately folding back from it. I think it was more like false bravado to kind of I don't know. But the main point I'm getting at is the cool parallel between how we know his father came to Evon'travir and said the same thing basically, at least in spirit, but probably like really truly thought that about himself. And look what
yeah,
happened to him.
yeah,
Yet now we have Ashton who like starts that way, but that's not really it. And
yeah.
he's really rejecting it. And it'll be really interesting to see what their destiny becomes to
Yeah.
contrast that of his father.
Yeah, I really
Um,
like the duality of that. That's really like a fun flip. Um, so it's fun how those things come together for sure.
yeah.
So his dad got the shard from Kamort from the necropolis of Toramunda. Uh, just a banger of location. And now they are. Some people were confused. They're not going there. They're going to the other place that has the shard of Rashan, the Chinese
Yeah,
mall.
I don't know how to pronounce it either. It's like
Chines.
CHY. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A volcanic mass on the island of Igtholdis, within the side of the Athos Peak. And he says, "It is my destiny to show you the way, but be warned, holding the strength of two and one vessel might sunder it. Find and bestow the might of the Emperor." Which I wonder if that means like Ashton is going to become like insanely powerful, or if he's going to hand that shard off to, you know, Fern. Her subclass is Circle of the Wildfire Spirit, or Circle of Wildfire, whatever it's
Mm,
called. So there's a little fire element with her. So I didn't
yeah.
know if it meant like he was going to hand it off, or if we are really going to see Ashton become the most powerful member of the party.
Yeah, I don't know either. Like, I mean, we know that Ashen is like a homebrewed uh
Right.
subclass. So like I think now that we know this about the Shard of Kamort and stuff, I'm sure that's kind of like at least the in-universe reason for why. So that's to say, like, if he did combine with the other shard, I think there would be some obvious like new class mechanics or new racial abilities that would certainly be unlocked, but I couldn't see it being something like Ashton is now like level 20, to put it simply.
Well,
Um,
I'm assuming the power spikes probably like when Vax got the Deathwalker cloak, or
like a legendary item type of
yeah, like was
boost.
was there like a pretty obvious like
I mean,
dang?
it's exaggerated in the show, but I think that makes
Yeah,
sense
okay.
because it's the different medium. I mean, it's a really powerful item, but in D&D, like, yeah, you might use it every combat, but like, are you really like? I don't know. I don't want to like demean the item because it's a great item, but like, I don't know if you're like really like hardcore noticing it. It's not like you're going
Hmm.
Super Saiyan
Yeah,
necessarily.
he can
Um,
cast disintegrate at will to anything within 10 feet.
uh,
So,
yeah, I was wondering this too.
okay, I was just gonna say, yeah. What's your guess on what he's gonna do with it?
Well, so it's this seems to be his like story right now, but there was the warning about like it could sunder one vessel, but could. And I thought
Mm.
it was interesting because like Ashen is like uniquely already sundered, So like and uniquely has the dunamancy in his head, which is the infinite possibilities. So like maybe I know I've said like uniquely like 8 times. Maybe he's like uniquely qualified to be able to house both.
Mm.
Um
Maybe made whole by housing both.
ooh, perhaps. But like what happened like okay, I don't want to go there just yet. But so I think it's in the hands of the players. Like I think Matt could do either. Like I think with what we just said, it could make perfect sense for Ashton to be able to do both. Or if they decide, hey, let's give it to Fern or let's give it to whoever, then he'll run with that. So for my money, in Matt's mind, it's an open book. It's an open choice right now. Um, I don't really know which way they'll go. I kind of want it to be Ashton just to see what would happen. Um, but I don't know. I'm interested to see, kind of regardless of if it happens, but especially if it happens where Ashton is both. Like nothing comes without a price, And I don't want to
Mhm.
put like one singular entity behind things pulling the strings because I don't really think that's what's at stake here. But like whatever this destiny is, whatever these visions were, like there's some motive, right? There's some like end goal behind it. So like could Ashton like disappear and like just becomes the avatar of the Titans and like is no longer Ashton? You know what I mean? Like not that he's gonna be like Kamort resurrected necessarily, but
I do wonder where Matt's going with it though, in the sense of it feels like Matt's been making it clear that this is not like a return story of Raushan or Kamort. That we had the dialogue from Hevestro, I think, was his name, where they were talking about the primordials, and he was like, "The primordials are gone, like they're
Yeah.
gone." And then we got something similar from Evon'travir,
Right.
where Evon'travir says the primordials are no more, but also that there's an opportunity to like a resurgence or something. I need to find the notes here. Um, Point being, I'm curious like what Matt is. I mean, I'm just curious like where this goes. Like, is he? So I guess what I'm saying is I don't think he's going to become like an avatar of Rashana Komort, but maybe usher in like the new version of the primordials, which are distinctly different from the original ones. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I could see something like that because we've had all this, at least recently, this Eidolon kind of
Mm-hmm.
groundwork being laid out,
Right.
especially in a god vacuum, which may not be the case, but
Right.
I could see like we now have to kind of usher in, and maybe they don't have control of it, but they're like, we're going to do our best to kind of usher in this new age of not the Titans coming back, but just this new age of elemental
Right.
Eidolons and entities. Yeah, I don't know. I too don't see like Ash like Matt saying, "All right, Tal, make a new character because Ashton is now the Titan and my NPC." Like, I don't see that happening, but I'm just very curious, like, what the consequences could be because it doesn't seem like it's just. I mean, maybe it could be just a pure boon.
Yeah.
Um,
Here's by the way the question that I did find it looking at it. So they're asking about the Titans and the balance between the Titans and the gods. And Evon'travir says Evon'travir cannot say if the gods are a blessing or a bane. Some seek to harmonize, others subjugate, and some destroy. However, the Titans are gone. All that remains is what was before and what comes after, which I think is very interesting. The divine are pilgrims made idols. Refugees become conquerors. They are not makers, but crafters, shapers, and devotees follow in their image. The followers take what is found and make it into something new, sometimes beautiful, sometimes terrible. And this freaking line from Matt, is that the God's nature or are they a reflection of us? Um, so, little note about the Titans, but also a lot to unpack from that
yeah,
whole thing, too. Of
yeah,
which isn't the first time this has come up, by the way, of like the deities not actually being even this party has talked about it. The deities not actually being like the origination of all things great, but actually sort of maybe harnessing the magic of their followers, or rather gathering the magic from their followers. But especially this line about calling them refugees, like having left and come from somewhere. Um, I don't know. What's your reaction to all of that stuff that I just shared?
yeah. Uh, to put the last note on the elementals and the Titans and stuff, I think you said in that they're gone. All that remains is what was before and what comes after. So I think yeah, it's not like Rashan and Kamort are gonna like get resummoned. But I think that especially the after could be alluding to given what happens if there's a vacuum, if there's not, like maybe Ashton is like uniquely positioned to be able to kind of usher in these elemental powers anew. Um,
Do you, just pausing there for a second. Is there any? I mean, I've been working on some content.
yeah,
It's taking me a long time to actually get it done, but this big question mark around the goodness or badness of the party. And something that strikes me as interesting is we're talking about shards of these primordials that were fairly explicitly evil in Calamity. Like we know that from the Calamity foreshot that it was foretold that if Roshan and Komort were to join the betrayers, that not only would the deities be destroyed, but it would be an endless age of ash and devastation on the world. So I'm also interested as to like what kind of power are they supposedly walking into, and what kind of impact is that going to have on Ashton and it's not fair to say like his morality, but you're it's interesting. I don't know if it's too much of a stretch or if there would be something there from like a plot thread.
Yeah, I don't. So this is where it's we're getting like into the depths of it because I don't know if it's fair to call them evil. The
It was pretty
Titans.
explicitly, well, that's fair not to call the Titans in general evil. I think that's what made Asmodeus so compelling in Calamity, with his backstory. Uh, However, the prophecy about, or what was foretold was that these two primordials specifically, um,
Right.
in, but yeah,
but
so
but there's so much like context, but at that point there'd already been a war. They'd been imprisoned. So like if they got out, of course they're going to work with the betrayers to overthrow their imprisoners. Now, I'm not going to bat and saying that, they did nothing wrong.
sounds
But
like you are, which is
but
a very big energy from you usually is.
I'm just saying, like, if we go back to the history that we've been told, which might not be true, who knows? Uh, because who knows? History's written by the victors, right? But the gods came to Exandria, and the Luxon had already embraced the planet, which is a lot of maybe why the gods were drawn there in the first place. But the elemental titans and stuff were already there, and so they kind of just come to this you be chill, I'll be chill situation. But then the gods make humanity and things are still chill, but then they start granting humans more and more powers. And then the Titans are like, yo, not cool because now these humans are like taming us and like fighting us. And that's what led to the war, right? So they are like diametrically opposed to humanity and stuff at this point, but like, not, like,
I just don't get like
don't they have an
I get you empathizing with them, but I just don't get like you big so like, hey,
I'm just
whoa,
I'm just saying
whoa,
they're not
man,
like they're
like
I'm just saying the elemental primordial entities energy is not inherently evil, especially if we're talking about like a new generation, if we can call it that. Like it's not like a malevolent source. They just happen to be on the other side of the war given to all these circumstances, you know what I'm saying? So like if Kamort teleported back to the world, I'm sure he's going to have beef with everybody, but like if this is like a new, you get what I'm saying? It's not like an inherently evil energy.
I'd be
It's
okay if it was just primordial energy in general, but they are getting a shard of that specific character. It'd be like, hey, yeah, I got this shard of Satan, but it's all good, man. It's not Satan himself, it's just his essence,
yeah,
which Comort wasn't that. I'm just trying to give an explanation of
right.
like a presumably evil character. Um,
Right. I get what you're
I'm all
saying.
about you being empathetic, and like, hey, this wasn't really fair. I get it, but I'm also, you seem like you're leaning pretty hard into
No,
like,
I
you
just
know,
I'm just trying to say that it's not necessarily evil, but I get what you're
right.
saying.
I think we agree. So, okay, where do we go from here? There was such a random segue that I
Yeah.
threw us into.
I feel like
I was talking about just Matt. I mean, I have to think that he like rehearsed this because it was so well done. But the descriptions of the gods and not being creators but shapers.
oh yeah.
So then I interrupted you, I think, as you were chatting about it.
Yeah, I was just going to say that is kind of like I just said in that one history of creation that we are told that the gods came to Exandria and were presumably drawn by something. So they weren't just always here and made stuff. Like they came here. So and I don't remember when it was, but there was another piece of like deep lore that also invoked the imagery of like the gods being refugees, like they were running from something, maybe Perdothos.
Mm-hmm.
But so now we got that same verbiage used here, refugees.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just I love this understanding being deepened where like they're just gods to us, but they themselves maybe where they're from are not necessarily like seen as gods.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of shaped their own identities by from their followers, which makes it really interesting if we can take Asmodeus at his word of like they showed up and each chose different domains, and the betrayers just got left with the scraps, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm really interested to find out more if we do, where they came from, what the true origin of all this is. Like, does the
Hmm.
Luxon play into it as well? Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I also um one one final thing on the Titans and stuff before I move on to this next part with what Evon'travir said. But I thought it was interesting that the I don't remember the exact word of the question, but the one of the things they asked Evon'travir was like, "How do we beat Ludinus?"
Right.
And Matt gave a pretty kind of cryptic answer. Not, he didn't say like go for the head. But the first things he says are about the shards of the two Titans. So I'm wondering, like, is that just Matt kind of painting the picture of where they need to go next, or is there like something explicit about these Titans and their power that is going to
Mm.
like be a trump card against Ludinus?
So, reading the answer on how to defeat Ludinus, the tree inhales again. They see blurry flashes of the earthen spark. I guess actually, this is why people in the Discord were saying it wasn't the shard in his head, because this seems pretty deliberate. Um, the group sees blurry flashes of the earthen spark that beats in the chest of your compatriot, Ashton. Flickering flame that is embedded within the roiling fires in molten earth of some distant cavern. That's the other one. An endless dusty expanse, cries of anguish, bloodshed and war, the bloody bridge, the moon. This is the path you've chosen. Follow your convictions or change them. I cannot tell you what is right.
So I just thought it was interesting that they asked how to beat Ludinus, and like those two Titan things were the immediate answer.
Yeah.
So
Right.
could just
Right.
be
Yes.
this is where the narrative's going, like this is, boom boom boom, or is there like something specific about that is going
You
to.
know, it feels like there's still another shoe to drop, though, because Ludinus was studying the primordials, and from his journal, there was a mention of a hidden away primordial or something like that.
Yeah, I think now in retrospect, I feel like that must just be referring to one of these shards.
Oh, okay. So one of the shards tucked away
I feel like
and
that
not
makes
like a
more
third.
sense than like
Okay.
I don't, that's just my guess. I'm not like saying that's
Yeah.
fact or anything, but that's makes sense
But
to me.
don't you think it's kind of interesting that he would, let's say it is the shards, that he would be studying those things? Like it's a bit of a coincidence that he would be studying the things that the party would be fated to retrieve to ultimately defeat him. Um, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting. It's been interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it, I could see like that entire realm of things just being in his area of study in trying to like, how do I take down the gods? And the
Yeah.
primordials were like their original enemies. So like I could see him
Yeah.
like looking into it for that reason. Um, but it is super interesting. Um, but okay, so the other vision that I thought was really interesting, and well, okay, well, here's a question that I have to ask before this: is can Evon'travir be trusted? Is this thing a reliable narrator? I
Mm.
don't know. Like,
I
I
didn't consider that.
there's no reason not to trust it, I guess, but especially the whole thing we touched on earlier with like the visions and using F. Terran as a pawn. I'm not saying Evon'travir is behind that, but like what like whose agenda is behind all of this? And maybe Evon'travir is like an unbiased, just telling it like it is, but I don't know.
Well, I
I
mean, clearly set of Terran on his path to his own demise.
right, right.
I mean, I guess it could have been that, Avantreer said like, "Hey, and be careful, by the way," but presumably for the greater good, sent on of Terran, theoretically, you know, could be sending the party off to their own demise for the good of.
Yeah, and yeah, because again, not saying this is the case, but if they are unreliable and do have their own agenda, what might that agenda be? Well, they're a Gaujashari that died during the calamity, had everything stripped from them
Right,
because of wizards and gods.
right,
We know the
right,
Gaujashari were like one with the Eidolons and the Titans. And what is this tree having them do? Recover the two Titan things. So I don't know. It could have its own agenda and could be an unreliable narrator.
I think that's a great point, a great insight. Let me read some of these other questions. What
Oh,
happens to the? Go ahead.
oh no, yeah, yeah. Sorry, that's what I was leading into, but read that first because that's what I was going to talk about.
Um, what happens to the gods if Predathos is not stopped? The party feels a shared vision. They see a thin line of the bloody bridge widen. This is the line leading up to the moon, the elevator. The skies crack. Beings of impossible fathomability, light and shadow alike, stepping from the heavens. A lattice of infinite gold apparate and shatter. The divine gate breaking. The lights and shadows leave, chased by a glow of endless red. As those lights fade, left below, the blue waters and green of the world lay bare, and the vision pulls.
So what I was going to say is, if it's a reliable narrator, then we now have our answers as to what happens if Redathos gets free. Because we were wondering, like, would he be able to pass through the divine gate? Would he like wreak havoc on Exandria first? And according to that vision, the divine
Right.
gate breaks and they all run, and Predathos chases them. So like, and on to the second part of that sentence in a second, but at least that part of the vision could show that, you know, maybe there is no downside in terms of people who want the gods gone to unleashing Predathos. Like, he's not gonna kill the gods and then stick around and kill all of us. Maybe. Um, which I
Well, I
just
guess
thought.
the
Go
question
ahead.
is, with like the laid bare, is it?
Yeah, that's the second part.
Does he mean like laid bare, like a wasteland, like ruin, or does he
Yeah,
mean laid bare, like back to like its original form, like it's laid out to be remade or reshaped, or it
that's a
feels
good
like
question.
how you interpret it depends
Yeah,
on if this is really bad. I mean, it could be that Predathos leaves to chase after the gods, but everything is destroyed,
right.
or it could be it leaves the world now for us to decide what we do with it. Um, it is interesting how it seems like there's ambiguity with that question, and yet later, um, he says lewdness should be stopped. Um, So, and
Yeah,
it even actually says it may be it may very well be that there are harder choices for you to make the further you draw close to your destiny, which is cryptic. But so, if Ludinus should be stopped, isn't his plan to free Predathos, or is we've talked about what's motivating Ludinus? If this really is a story of, revenge against the gods, or if he has an actual ulterior motive to take Predathos' place. So I don't, even though I'm saying these things feel like they're mutually exclusive, like it is whatever you decide,
yeah,
but stop lewdness. It very may well be that they aren't exclusive. And he's saying it's your choice if you want to stop opening up Predathos' prison, but definitely stop lewdness from his actual plan,
yeah,
which, so yeah, I don't know, but I
yeah.
don't
I'm
know.
with you. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know either. I think there must be some nuance to it. I would imagine. Um, maybe even if it is a tale of revenge, maybe there's some, like, even if it's not to ascend, maybe Ludinus has some, like, okay, after this happens, type of plans that need to be thwarted. But yeah, in any case, it definitely feels like Matt is ultimately setting them up for like this huge philosophical question of like, you getting rid of the gods or not,
Mhm.
kind of regardless of how Ludinus plays into it. Um,
Yeah.
because I mean that seemed to be the whole grand destiny that the tree kept like teasing them with. They're like, you're heading to this thread that you
Right.
will be the ones to potentially disrupt the destiny that this other dude has spent
Right.
hundreds, if not thousands, of years setting up. So it definitely feels poised for Bell's Hells to be at the
Yeah.
train tracks and they decide which lever to pull.
Yeah, it says you walk a path together. Oh, man, I'm sorry. I got to mute myself. I got to take this call real quick.
Okay,
Sorry, brother. I'm sorry.
no,
One
you're
sec.
good. You're good. You're good. All right, I can wax poetic all day. So here's my
Hello?
thinking on that. Oh, you're not muted. Oh, I think I can mute him actually. Um,
Yeah, what's going on? No.
hmm. All right. Well, we're we're disconnected him for now. Okay, he'll rejoin when he's ready. Um. Uh oh. Oh no, you're not muted.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully he gets it. Okay. Um. Where was I? So this vision. We already talked about the first part where I think it's really interesting that we have the gods and Predatos leaving, and then we have the laid bear, right? Which, like Blake was just talking about, that laid bear could mean Exandria is devastated and is now laid bare. But if it doesn't mean that, if it does mean Predatos and the gods leave without inflicting this vast chaos on the planet, another interpretation of laid bare could be that there is now nothing left to protect Exandria. There is no divine gate. There are no gods with which to draw divine powers. Now, there may be another, especially mechanically, way to like have spells and stuff, but in a grand philosophical sense, the planet is now in the open, laid bare for whatever threats, local, domestic, extraplanar, may come. You know, there's now nothing protecting it. Which we know that Predathos has been described as alien. We know the gods were refugees, aka alien, at least in the sense of Exandria. What other things are out there that may now be able to access Exandria? And not even extraterrestrial, extraplanar entities, but what about things we know about, aka the Chained Oblivion, which is not a deity, at least as we've been told thus far. It is explicitly not a deity. And so if its chains are broken, which seemingly if the divine gate breaks and all the gods leave, its bindings would too be broken. Now it is just going to have free reign on Exandria. I don't know. So like even in a best case interpretation of the gods leaving and Exandria's laid bare, there are still a lot of things that to worry about. Um so I don't know. I think Matt explicitly used that vague language and that cryptic language because of, it's a D&D game, you know. It could go any number of directions. So obviously there's no like one in-game scenario that he's just hinting at, you know, playing out. So I think his options are open, but I think it's really interesting to think about. All right. Let me look through my notes again. The good news is, I mean, I think we had pretty much talked about most of everything we wanted to. So if I can't find anything else, I may just wrap this up for us because I have no idea how long that. I was gonna call it that TV call. I have no idea how long that phone call is gonna be. Um. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's one more thing, which it'd be nice to have Blake to bounce this off of, but really it's stemming from kind of some campaign one lore. So, um, uh, I can just kind of talk through it myself. So I was wondering if Ashton might be fate touched. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's basically just like a special designation, I guess let's call it. Which I don't want to get into too many spoilers. Most of you are going to know what I'm talking about, but I'll still just be vague. But there was a character in campaign one that was fate touched, and it has a lot to do with destiny, with fate, and with being able to kind of mess with or reassemble those threads of fate, being able to kind of change destiny, or rather that destiny is changed kind of just around you as a byproduct. You're almost removed from the web and able to kind of create your own threads, if we could put it that way. And Ashton, which the character in campaign one didn't have Dunamantic Lux and Beacon stuff. Um, but so the fact that Ashton also has that, is just another, tally in the column of could he be fate touched? And this is just like a cool way to um exemplify that. I don't know, because the tree, basically set up that like, hey, you have a destiny. Your father's entire destiny was just to get you here. So I think he might be. Are you sorry, you weren't
Hey.
muted, so I kept
Oh
kicking
yeah,
you.
I realized I muted my OBS, but not Discord. But I was like, did he just kick me from the call?
Yeah. I didn't know
Sorry,
what that phone call was about, so I just wanted to be
yeah,
safe.
I had a customer who I had somebody who their marketing person the marketing person lost their customer who went to a different marketing person, and the marketing person felt like the other person had stolen the customer from
Ooh.
them, which was not the case. They just lost the customer, and then the person was calling me to be like, "Hey, these two people, I don't know what's going on," and I was like, "I don't even know why you're calling me because I'm not involved in it." So anyway, but yeah, so all that random mess. But anywho, where
Anywho,
were we?
um, I talked about two things while you were away, which I don't want to just like completely dive into them, but I'll give you the gist of what I was saying. One is about that laid bare line.
Mm,
I was saying that even in like the best case scenario, where that means Predathos and the gods left and they didn't destroy Exandria first, laid bare could just mean that now there's not like now Exandria is defenseless. There is no divine gate. There are no gods.
mm,
What other alien or extraplanar or horrible
mm-hmm,
entities may now be able to access Exandria without its protectors or gates, if you will? And I specifically mentioned the Chained Oblivion, which is an entity on Exandria that I'm assuming if the Divine Gate broke, which it's not behind the Divine Gate, but if that broke and the gods left, I'm assuming its bindings would be freed and it would just have free reign on the planet. So even in like the best case scenario of the laid bare, like it could still be bad.
yeah. I
um,
think maybe it seems like let's just agree Predathos getting free is probably not a good thing, which I think the party is mostly there, even though it's taken like 40 episodes of, do we want to do this? Are we good? So
could just be the natural way of things, predators and prey.
I guess, yeah.
I don't know, but
What was
the
your second point though?
the only other thing is I was wondering if Ashton is fate touched, which is like a specific mechanic or designation in Matt's world. Um,
Interesting.
that one of the characters in campaign 1 was fate touched. Basically just means that, you kind of can all these like destiny driven events happen around you and you are able to like mold them kind of by your presence. Um, which
Mm.
I don't think he has to be, but like he certainly could be with everything that we know is going on with him. Not to mention the Dunamancy head.
All right, there's a lot of spoilers about this fate touch thing, so I'm gonna
Yeah,
stop reading this. I think.
back out.
Yeah. Yeah. Some interesting things for sure. Presumably got a big combat session coming up. I mean, I wouldn't guess that this shard is undefended.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Keep
I
in
didn't
mind
think
that
about that.
resurrection magic still doesn't work. I don't know if this is something that's permanently doing now or what exactly, but
I wouldn't guess it's
um,
permanent. I mean, I would assume it just has to do with the solstice shenanigans. So
yeah, yeah.
I don't know though.
So
But yeah,
hmm.
that's always good to remember. Is that that's. I mean, I guess they haven't tested it, especially in a while. Like maybe
It's like
it
vibes of
works.
like I found this bulletproof vest. Shoot me and see if it works. I'm just looking at these questions to see questions and answers if there's anything else that was mentioned
Yeah,
that we
I
didn't talk about.
I think I hit everything I wanted to. I was looking through my notes when you were off. But while he's looking through, I'll go ahead and plug once more the Discord. Come hang out with us. Come talk theories. Come have watch parties again. Tomorrow night, we will be having our Campaign 3 Episode 75 watch party. This Sunday, the finale of Calamity, and various times Fantasy High, if you're into that.
I think we covered everything on the questions too.
Nice.
So thank you all again for helping us get to 10,000 subs. I appreciate you
Yes.
all being on the journey with us.
Indeed.
So
Here's to the next 7,000.
yeah,
It's not that
but
many.
none after.
I don't know why I said 7,000. I was initially gonna say like a huge number, and then 7,000 just came out. So
Yeah. I will say we did start a gaming channel. We're trying to kind of like subsect our channel a little bit better, kind of niche it a little bit better. So you can check out in our Discord, we have a link to it, but it's the Pixelist Gaming at Pixelist Gaming. And we're going to try to focus more Pixelist Gaming content there.
yeah.
So if you like game, you can check that out too.
And if you don't, and you just want to help us out,
Yeah.
you know. But alrighty,
All right.
y'all. Well, until next time. Bye.